The hummingbird that just appeared at your feeder has crossed approximately 3,000 miles to be there. Not to your city, not to your neighborhood, to your specific yard, your specific feeder, the exact branch it perched on last summer before it left. And the most extraordinary part is not the journey itself. It is what was waiting for it on the other end of it. A memory of your yard so specific that the bird picks up exactly where it left off. Which flower empties fastest? When the feeder runs dry. Which sounds in your house belong here, and which do not. And one thing more. You. Not the abstract you. Not a category of human being. The specific person who appears at this feeder. Your face. Your body. The way you move when you walk past the kitchen window. The pattern of light and color and ultraviolet reflectance that the bird has been quietly assembling into a recognizable signature across every visit it has ever made to your property. Welcome back. If you're new here, subscribe, because what you're about to hear will change the way you look at every small bird that passes through your life. Today, we're going deep into one of the most sophisticated cognitive systems in the animal world. A brain the size of a pea, attached to a creature that weighs less than a nickel, that carries within it a memory. Architecture science is only beginning to fully understand. And at the center of that architecture, increasingly, is something the research is now confirming. The hummingbird in your yard recognizes you specifically, not your species, you. There are 8 things I want you to know about how that recognition works and what it means. Stay until the end. The last one is the most important. Number 1. The brain in your yard is built to remember you. Biology Letters, 2012. In 2012, researchers publishing in Biology Letters measured the hippocampal formations of 37 species of birds. The hippocampus is the brain structure most closely associated with spatial memory, episodic recall, and the encoding of specific places and times. The same structure that allows you to navigate a familiar city, to remember exactly where you were sitting when something important happened, to replay the layout of a childhood home you have not visited in decades. What they found in hummingbirds was extraordinary. The hippocampal formation in hummingbirds, when measured as a proportion of total brain volume, was 2 to 5 times larger than in any other bird species they examined. Not a modest difference, not a statistical margin, 2 to 5 times larger than caching birds, than corvids, than seabirds, than woodpeckers. The hummingbird's brain has allocated an exceptional portion of its architecture to the kind of memory that encodes specific locations, specific objects, and specific experiences. A hummingbird in its breeding season visits hundreds of individual flowers every single day. It must remember not just where each flower is, but when it last visited it, how much nectar that flower typically produces, and how long the nectar takes to replenish. That is an enormous memory task for a brain smaller than your fingertip. The hippocampus grew to meet it, and you, standing in your yard, maintaining your feeder, moving through your garden in your regular patterns, are part of what that hippocampus is storing. Number 2, it doesn't just remember where, it remembers when. Current Biology, 2006. For most of the 20th century, scientists believed that episodic memory, the ability to recall not just what happened, but where and when it happened, was unique to humans. The argument was philosophical as much as empirical. To remember an experience as an experience, you needed a sense of self, a concept of personal continuity across time. Animals, it was assumed, did not have these things. In 2006, a research team led by Susan Healy at the University of Edinburgh and T. Andrew Hurley at the University of Lethbridge published a paper in Current Biology that quietly dismantled that assumption. Their subjects were wild, rufous hummingbirds in their natural breeding grounds in southwestern Alberta. They gave each hummingbird access to 8 artificial flowers. 4 of the flowers refilled with sugar solution 10 minutes after the bird had emptied them. The other 4 refilled 20 minutes after being emptied. The question was simple. Would the birds track not just the location of each flower, but the specific time that each flower would be ready again? They would. Across repeated trials, the hummingbirds returned to the 10-minute flowers significantly sooner than to the 20-minute flowers. Their return visits matched the refill schedules with precision, not the general schedule, but the individual schedule of each specific flower. They were tracking a separate temporal record for each individual location. The researchers called this the first demonstration of what, where, when memory in a free-living animal. Your feeder has its own refill schedule. The hummingbird that visits it knows that schedule. It knows when you typically refill it. It knows what happens when the level drops. It has assigned your feeder a temporal slot in its daily circuit. A slot it is recalculating and updating every single day. Number 3. After 3,000 miles, it lands on the same branch. Hummingbirds are among the most precisely site-faithful migrants in the bird world. A 10-year study of broad-tailed hummingbirds in Colorado documented that female birds return to the same breeding territory at rates of up to 70% between consecutive seasons. These were not returns to the same general area. They were returns to specific patches of habitat, verified through individual banding of hundreds of birds. Male Anna's hummingbirds, the iridescent green species most likely to be the one hovering at your window on the West Coast, are among the longest-lived North American hummingbirds, with banding records confirming lifespans over 8 years, and behavioral studies documenting multi-year occupation of the same flowering territory. Across that span of seasons, defending the same small patch of flowering shrubs, the same feeder, the same perch trees. An Anna's hummingbird accumulates a cognitive record of that location that would rival the familiarity a human develops with their own backyard. What makes this remarkable is the scale of what the bird overcomes to achieve it. A rufous hummingbird migrating from its Mexican wintering grounds to its breeding territory in western Canada or Alaska covers roughly 3,000 miles each way. It crosses deserts, mountain ranges, and open water. It weighs between 2 and 5 grams. And at the end of that journey, it does not land somewhere in the neighborhood of where it was before. It lands on the same branch. Banding studies regularly capture birds returning within 1 or 2 days of the exact date they were banded the previous year. Not the same week, not the same month, the same date. That is not a coincidence. That is memory precision operating at a level we are still working to fully understand. Number 4. You are a coordinate on its trapline. A hummingbird in active breeding season manages what researchers call a trapline, a circuit of individual nectar sources visited in a consistent sequence, optimized across days and weeks of trial and learning to maximize energy intake per unit of time. Each source on that trapline has its own location, its own quality, its own renewal rate. A typical trapline contains dozens to hundreds of individual flowers and feeders across a territory of several acres. Your feeder is one node on that circuit. But unlike a flower, your feeder has a different kind of unpredictability. A flower empties and refills on a biological schedule the hummingbird can learn to anticipate. Your feeder empties when the bird drinks from it and refills when a human fills it. And the timing of that human action is something the bird must learn to read. What research on rufous hummingbirds has shown is that they do exactly this. They track not just the quantity of nectar available, but the patterns of availability. When a given source tends to be full, when it tends to run dry, how quickly it depletes after a visit. And in that learning process, you, your routine, your reliability, your presence, become part of what it knows about that location. The hummingbird is not thinking about you the way you think about it, but it is building a behavioral model of your yard that includes you as a significant variable. When you are present, what does that predict? When you are absent, what changes? Is this human consistent? Is this human safe? Those are the questions its brain is solving, day by day, visit by visit. Number 5. It knows what kind of human presence you are. Research on bird cognition has documented individual human recognition in multiple species. Mockingbirds, in a 2009 study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, learned to distinguish individual humans who had approached their nests from those who had not, and directed significantly more alarm behavior toward the specific individuals who had threatened them, even when those individuals wore different clothing. American crows, in a landmark series of studies by John Marsluff at the University of Washington, remembered the faces of researchers who had trapped and banded them for years afterward, and taught that memory to other crows through social learning. The hummingbird's cognitive architecture, particularly its enlarged hippocampus and demonstrated capacity for individual-specific temporal memory, makes individual recognition not just plausible, but expected. What field researchers have documented is this. Hummingbirds show measurably different behavioral responses to humans they have encountered repeatedly versus humans they encounter for the first time. Flight initiation distances, the distance at which a bird flushes in response to an approaching person, are shorter for familiar humans. The approach to a feeder is more direct, more confident, more rapid with a known person than with a stranger. The hummingbird in your yard has been watching you. Not in the way we watch each other, not with inference about your inner life or your intentions in any abstract sense. But it is solving a behavioral problem. Is this particular presence in my territory a reliable element or an unpredictable one? And it has been accumulating data on that question across every single visit. Number 6. What it actually sees when it looks at your face. Princeton University, PNAS, June 2020. In June 2020, a Princeton-led research team, Mary Caswell Stoddard and her collaborators at the Department of Ecology and Evolutionary Biology, published a paper in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences confirming something scientists had long suspected but struggled to test directly. Working with wild broad-tailed hummingbirds at the Rocky Mountain Biological Laboratory in Colorado, the team showed, through a series of elegant outdoor experiments, that hummingbirds could discriminate colors that exist outside the range of human perception entirely. Where human vision operates with 3 color-sensitive cone types, red, green, and blue, hummingbirds have 4. That 4th cone is sensitive to ultraviolet wavelengths. And the researchers confirmed that hummingbirds do not simply see UV as a separate channel. They see non-spectral combinations, including UV plus red, UV plus green, UV plus yellow, and purple. Colors that have no analog in human experience because we have no physiological means of producing them. What this means is that when a hummingbird looks at you, it does not see you the way you see yourself. It sees you in a visual dimension you cannot access or imagine. Your skin, your clothing, your hair. All of these carry UV reflectance patterns that humans cannot perceive, but that are fully visible to the hummingbird evaluating you from its perch. Your face has a visual signature in ultraviolet that you have never seen and cannot predict. And that signature is part of what the hummingbird is using to identify you, specifically, as the consistent human presence at this particular location. You are more recognizable to the hummingbird than you realize, in ways you cannot see. Number 7. Year by year, it builds a portrait of you. The hummingbird that has been visiting your yard for 3, 4, or 5 years is not experiencing your yard anew each season. It is adding to a record. Each summer is a layer of data deposited onto a foundation built the summer before. Year 1. It learns the circuit, the feeder quality, the basic patterns of the property. Year 2. It returns with a baseline already established. The memory of last year's feeder location and reliability is part of what brought it back. It begins refining. Year 3. It is no longer exploring. It is operating from a comprehensive, tested mental model of your yard, including the patterns of the humans who maintain it. By year 4 or 5, a hummingbird that has been using your property regularly has accumulated what field researchers describe as a highly individualized, site-specific knowledge base, one that includes the seasonal timing of nectar sources, the reliability of maintained feeders, and a behavioral profile of the people associated with them. That bird has formed conclusions about you. Not the abstract you, not you as a category of being, but you, specifically, the particular human who appears at this particular feeder at this particular regularity. It has decided, on the basis of evidence accumulated over thousands of individual observations, whether you are worth approaching, worth trusting, worth returning to. And every spring, when it crosses 3,000 miles and lands on that branch, it is acting on those conclusions. Number 8. What you can do and why it matters. The hummingbird in your yard is not a visitor. It is a resident with a longer history at your property than most house guests ever achieve. Its relationship to your yard is one of deep, accumulated, specific knowledge of the feeder, the flowers, the insects, the perch trees, and the human or humans who make that location what it is. If you want to be part of what it returns to, if you want to be a recognized, trusted element in its model of your property, the path is simple but requires patience. Keep the feeder in the same location, refill it on a consistent schedule, use the same sugar concentration. Move predictably when you're in the yard. Do not stare directly at the bird with a fixed gaze. Hummingbirds, like many birds, register direct, unblinking eye contact as a predator signal. Instead, let your attention be soft, peripheral, non-threatening. Give it time to recalibrate whatever it has decided about you, and to update that decision towards something closer to trust. And over time, not days, but over the weeks and months and seasons, you may find that the bird's behavior around you changes in ways that are small but unmistakable. A shorter pause before approaching the feeder when you are nearby. A willingness to hover close enough that you can see the individual feathers of its throat. A moment when it stops on a branch a few feet away and looks at you, not with alarm, not with calculation, but with the quiet steadiness of a creature that has assessed you and found you acceptable. It will not tell you this, of course. It will simply come back. Every year, across every mile of migration, following the internal map it has built across a lifetime of precise, patient observation. It will come back to your tree, your feeder, your yard, because you are part of what it knows. Has there ever been a moment, at your feeder, at your window, when a hummingbird hovered close enough that you felt looked at? Not noticed in passing. Looked at, the way one familiar creature looks at another. Tell me in the comments. I read everyone. And if what you just heard changed the way you see the small bird at your window, share it with someone who keeps a feeder. I'll see you in the next one.